Well, the Foreign Ministry has confirmed that 2 Canadian nationals are being detained here for engaging in activities which, quote, endanger China's national security. One is a former diplomat. The other has arranged trips to North Korea, including for Dennis Rodman. That man is a businessman. Now, when asked if their situation is related to the detention of Huawei's CFO, the Foreign Ministry said that China is acting according to the law. Meanwhile, China is trying to keep the trade talks with the United States on track. The Commerce Ministry said that Beijing welcomes U.S. trade negotiators to visit. Separately, there's been a lot of talk now that the Chinese government is looking for an alternative to Made in China 2025, its more controversial program. Sources have been telling me that there are several authorities here who have recognized that the policy has become too controversial and is attracting too much criticism from overseas. And so now they're looking to draft a replacement, which could be implemented as early as January. So in the revised plan, it would de-emphasize China's goals to dominate manufacturing, drop hard targets potentially for market share for Chinese companies, and include greater market access for foreign firms. It's still unclear, though, whether or not Beijing would drop the more controversial aspects of its trade practices, such as subsidizing certain sectors. However, just for some context, there are a lot of people in the business community here who are quite skeptical because one of their biggest complaints is that the Chinese government often repackages measures or counts pronouncements as progress. So the fear here is that that is what we are seeing here again with this latest development.
Eunice, that's what we were talking about yesterday. Is this a situation where they're actually changing their goals, or are they just changing what they're saying about it, how they're marketing it?
Yeah, whether or not it's cosmetic. It's really difficult to say. I mean, there are a lot of people here who have been saying that there is reason why the Chinese government, or at least some of the officials, would want to see change. The Chinese government is made up of a lot of different factions, and there are some more reform-minded people who might be hoping to use this as an opportunity to push forward some reforms and are worried about the state's role in the overall economy. Of course, President Xi Jinping has been amping up the state role for the past several years. And so the question is whether or not he'd be willing to really ease up on some of those controls and just let the markets take their course. And that is a really, really big if.
Eunice, though, how does this play inside China? Because to me, the Made in China 2025 plan was really sort of like an America First style argument that was really made, I think, less to the rest of the world in China's case, as opposed to being marketed internally. And then, of course, it got marketed externally. And that, to some degree, I think, created actually a bit of a problem in terms of what the relationship looked like and what other countries said, oh, my goodness, look at what China is trying to do.
Yeah, well, there is some patriotism that is attached to Made in China 2025. It's been played up a lot in the state press and also at every single government conference where they're talking about the growth of China, the rise of China, and how important it is. My guess is that the population here will just go with the flow with whatever the president decides to do at the end of the day, and whether or not the Beijing leadership decides, you know, can we tweak it a little bit and then we'll sell it to the public. Some of the language that we're hearing now is an emphasis on higher quality growth and upgrading manufacturing. And in fact, today there was a Politburo, so this very high level meeting that was focusing on that for 2019. And also this week, we saw another interesting development, and that's the central government had dropped, had revised its priority list for the local governments. And in that priority list, it actually dropped Made in China 2025 and instead was playing up this idea of upgrading the manufacturing. So it suggests that perhaps, at least publicly, they're willing to get rid of this idea of Made in China 2025, although still a little bit of uncertainty how you would be able to do that here and upgrade your manufacturing without the government playing the big role that it has.